Welcome to the Everyday Heroes, Extraordinary Tales live podcast here at the Museum of Moving Image on this beautiful Friday, July 19th. Thank you all for taking time out your schedules to join us and to be here for this dynamic conversation with education manager, one of the education managers here at the museum, Andrea Bansil.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm excited to talk to you tonight.
Likewise.
About storytelling.
Yes.
And stories. First, talk about how you get into stories. How did you, as a young lady, find your way into love of stories and storytelling and story development and all of that?
Well, I was a passionate bookworm when I was little. I would hit every single summer reading requirement over the summers, and then I got into theater, and I was really into acting for a little bit, but then I found that I loved museums and the way stories are told through museums as well. So it's kind of a fusion of my childhood and teenagehood passions and things that I've come into as an adult. So what I love about working here is that I've become more of an interpreter of stories while getting to tell a couple of stories myself.
With your background, you went from loving books to theater to then museums, and those stories are compounded differently. Right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think it all starts with a single idea. I think usually people wake up one day and say, I want to tell a story about a young wizard who didn't realize that he was a wizard until, you know that story. Yep. Or sometimes people, let's say, find this really old piece of theater that's kind of experimental, and they say, I want to retell this story and turn it into a rock musical instead. So I think it just comes with, I think all you need is, it sounds kind of cheesy, but Disney always says that you just need a stroke of inspiration and imagination.
What inspires you to create your characters and your stories? Where do you enjoy your inspiration from?
It's a little cliche, but a lot of people say write what you know, and I think that even though you shouldn't stick to that entirely, I think that the basis comes from what you know and what inspires you. So it always starts with let's say I create a character and I want to write about my museum work experiences, so I start working that a little bit, and then more influences come into mind, and then this character becomes his or her own self independently, separate from me. Nice.
What do you think makes a good character? Why do people fall in love with certain characters? What is it?
I think that it depends on the type of story that you want to tell, and I keep saying that, but some people write primarily for themselves, and they know that this isn't going to sell, but it's creatively satisfying for them. But then on the other hand, there are people who say they want to pitch a movie or a TV show, and they also want to make sure that this is marketable, and then they decide, I want to reach the teenage demographic, so they write characters a certain way, or they say, no, this should be more for 8-year-olds, so they alter the characters in a completely different way. So it's like moving from genre to genre. It also it impacts the age impacts that.
Got it. Thank you. How do you, in storytelling, how can you tell a difference between a hero and a villain in the story itself? What is it about the characters, their emotions, their actions, their behavior to let you know that this person is a villain and that is the hero?
When storytelling was still pretty new, especially on screen, people, I don't think they fully trusted the audience yet, so they made very obvious signifiers, like the villain would have an evil laugh, or the villain would always be dressed in black, back when movies were in black and white. If it's a cowboy movie, the cowboy would always have the white cowboy hat. I think that we've been telling stories for years and years now. I think that it's gotten more complex, and again, Star Wars, but you can see what I love about it is that it's about people fighting against insurmountable odds, and they somehow come together using their different powers and abilities, and they help defeat this darkness. And I think that even though it does stick to certain cliches of the hero trope, I think that it's, we still need stories like that. I don't
Definitely.
think everything should be bleak. In another life, I might have pursued acting. I like being in front of people, and I like being able to share my passions with them in certain ways. So I think I would have attempted theater.
Okay.
Although I also very much am fascinated with voice acting and being able to tell a story with just my voice, no physicality, which is going to be hard because I use a lot of gestures.
Yes.
So I think in another life that would have been my path. Still storytelling, but in a completely different way.
It was a pleasure speaking with you and learning about you and what you do.
Okay, so usually what makes a story great is how much it's close to you. Because every one of us has something common with others. So you found yourself in one of his points.
Yep.
So that's what makes it great. It should, if you start from yourself, start from what you face daily, okay, what you struggle with, what you love, with your passion. That's what makes it great in the end.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What makes a good climax? How does a story is developed? What makes the climax good? Someone say, "Wow, I want to see it again."
Yeah. It's this point is so important because when you develop your idea and to be a really story thing, what's make it great? What's make it really live forever or become part of human, if you can say, culture or history? It's about how much is simple, and at the same time how much is open. Many of directors and writers in Latin America, they make a kind of adaptation for one of our writers. His name is Naguib Mahfouz. And actually Naguib Mahfouz, he started his stories from Egyptian streets.
Wow.
So Latin American writers and directors found something common there.
Wow.
And they make adaptation, and there is great movies from Latin America, like from Mexico, and not sure Mexico's not Latin America.
Yeah.
I mean the culture.
Yes.
Okay, it's affected by this writer in Egypt,
Nice.
and some of our writers and directors affected by some writers from Latin America at the
Yeah.
same time. So that's what make you catch the point. Okay, what's make it great? That's how it's so local. It came from the writer or the storyteller life, his environment. He don't try to make something fake. He
Yes.
started from where he are,
Yes.
and that's what makes the story so international after
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Until now, as an adult, I realize everything is a storyline. So can you talk about how stories are changed, or how video games are made from stories, and what that process is like?
Yeah. Actually, what wonderful things about video game when visual artists and writers and filmmakers start to influence by the culture, they start to influence by it. I mean, video games. For maybe we can say officially from middle of 80s, like 1985, and they start with it as a pop culture. And that's what make it amazing. Okay, that's how the influence coming. They start to feel, okay, there's now like two generations already grow up with this culture, and you can find that in your visual memory, in your sound memory, and now it's so easy for you when you hear just a music from Mario, for example.
Yeah.
The images come to
Wow.
you, or Street Fighter sounds. Okay, like arcade games, especially, I was crazy about it.
Same.
So
If you weren't doing media arts, if you weren't here at the museum doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
in the museum here, what?
If you wasn't here at the museum,
Okay.
what would you be doing with your life?
Yeah, actually, it's one of my dreams, especially after I start my research in video game art form, and I saw the environment in the United States in general, and here in the museum especially. I'm dreaming about a game lab, open game lab for different generations, okay, with wonderful possibilities, okay, to be a kind of, if we can say, factory for ideas, and also good environment for students, whatever they age, okay, art students especially also, okay, developers, and make kind of community through it.
No, but thank you so much, man. Your knowledge,
Thank you.
and your wisdom, and your passion is definitely felt. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Appreciate
a lot.
it. You did great.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. 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 Awesome.